The internet loves to sell you this dream, right? Making money while you sleep, sipping margaritas on a beach while cash just magically appears in your bank account. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on that whole fantasy of passive income. We're going to get into the real math, the hidden risks, and the psychological traps that most people just never see coming. Okay, let's dive in.
And let's just start with a pretty blunt statement from our source material here. That popular version of passive income, the one that sells all the courses and gets all the clicks, it's not the whole story. In fact, it's often a really dangerous oversimplification. So what's the truth? Well, the myth promises this perfect machine that just prints money for you forever, with absolutely zero work. But the reality? For pretty much everyone who actually pulls this off, it's way more hands-on. The reality is this messy, constantly shifting blend of different strategies that all need your attention.
To really get our heads around this, we first need to break down the two fundamental ways people actually fund their lives from their assets, without a traditional job.
Think of it like this. First, you've got the cash flow model. This is where your assets, like rental properties or dividend stocks, are like a golden goose that lays eggs for you to live on. You never touch the goose itself. Then there's the total return model. Here, you're methodically selling off tiny pieces of the goose, betting that the goose itself will grow faster than you can shrink it. Now, what's really interesting is that the most successful people, they rarely stick to just one. They build a hybrid system to get both stability and growth.
So let's start with that total return model, because it's governed by a super famous rule you've probably heard of. But as we're about to see, this simple little rule has some very, very messy complications.
And here it is, the 4% rule. Now, the inverse of 4% is 25, which gives us that quick napkin math everyone loves. You need 25 times your annual spending to retire. So, you spend $40,000 a year, you need $1 million invested. Simple, right?
Well, not so fast. See, the 4% rule isn't a law of physics. It's a probability based on historical U.S. market data, and a lot of recent research suggests that a more conservative rate, maybe closer to 3.5%, might be what you actually need for real long-term security.
So using that classic rule, to get $40,000 a year, you need this much, $1 million. This is the number that most people have stuck in their heads. But look what happens if that truly safe rate is just 0.5% lower. Suddenly you need an extra $150,000 just to generate the exact same lifestyle. That tiny little percentage change has a massive, massive impact on how much you have to save.
Okay, so maybe you're thinking, fine, I'll just use the cash flow model instead. No selling, no problem. Whoa, hold on. This is where a lot of people fall into an even bigger trap by confusing the money that comes in with the money they actually get to keep.
And this just illustrates the point perfectly. Someone buys a duplex and they get all excited. It rents for $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year in passive income. No, it's not. That's your gross revenue. After all the hidden costs, your actual net income, the money in your pocket, might be just a fraction of that.
Because that gross revenue? Oh, it gets eaten alive. You've got taxes, insurance, repairs, then there are the months it sits empty, fees if you hire a manager, and don't forget the big stuff, the capital expenses like a new roof that you have to save up for. All of a sudden, your passive income stream looks an awful lot like a part-time job.
This quote from the source just nails it. When you're dealing with tenants and toilets and repairs, you've often just bought yourself a brand new, lower-paying job. Now, it might be better than your 9-to-5, but let's be honest with ourselves, it is not passive.
So we've looked at income, but there's another variable in this whole equation that is 10 times more powerful than your investment returns. And it's the one thing you have complete and total control over starting today.
So this is the crucial point. Based on that 4% rule, every single dollar of annual spending in your life needs $25 in a portfolio working behind the scenes just to sustain it, forever. When you see it this way, every expense you have takes on a whole new weight, doesn't it? Let's make this real. A $500 a month car payment. That's $6,000 a year. To generate that income passively, you need to save up and keep invested an extra $150,000. Think about that. That one line item on your budget is costing you years and years of your freedom.
And this is the psychological trap that keeps so many people from ever getting there. It's called lifestyle creep. You get a raise, so you get a nicer car. You move to a bigger house. Your income goes up, but your spending goes up right along with it. Because, hey, you feel like you've earned it. The problem is, you're making more money, but you're not actually getting any closer to freedom. You're just running on a faster, more expensive treadmill.
Now, even if you master your spending and you build the absolute perfect portfolio, there is one monster hiding in the closet that can destroy everything right at the moment you need it the most.
It's called sequence of returns risk.
It sounds complicated, but all it means is that the order in which you get your investment returns matters a lot. Getting bad returns in your first couple years of retirement is way, way more damaging than getting them later on. It's all about timing.
Let's just see how this plays out. Look at this. Both people start with $1 million and both withdraw $40,000. The unlucky person gets hit with a bad market right away. Their portfolio drops and they're forced to sell low, which just digs a hole they might never recover from. But the lucky person? They get a great market. Their withdrawals are barely a blip. Their portfolio actually grows, creating this amazing buffer that makes them nearly invincible. Same plan, totally different outcomes, based on pure luck.
So how do you fight bad luck? With a protocol. You build a shock absorber. This means you hold 1 to 3 years of your living expenses in boring old cash. So when the market inevitably crashes, you just live off that cash buffer. You do not sell a single share of stock. This simple strategy buys you time for the market to recover, and it ensures you never have to sell your assets at the absolute worst possible moment.
And this really gets to the heart of what this is all about. You know, a lot of people achieve financial independence, and then they feel lost because they spent their whole lives running from a job instead of running to a life. The goal isn't endless leisure. The goal is freedom. It's having complete and total autonomy over your time and your energy.
So if we put it all together, the realistic path to living off your assets looks something like this. You've got a foundation of low-cost index funds for that long-term growth. You layer on some semi-passive cash flow to cover the basics and just reduce your stress. You have that cash buffer to survive the bad years, and most importantly, you build a life with flexibility and purpose, a life you don't even want to escape from in the first place.
So I'll just leave you with this question. Forget the margaritas on the beach for a minute. Now that you understand the real mechanics and the trade-offs, what does true financial autonomy, your freedom, actually look like for you?